In this example, I want to go ahead and take a look at our first service, which is IAM, and it stands for Identity and Access Management. Again, there's a couple of ways you can get to this. So you can go to your services and find it here. You can search for it. I have it in my recently visited. So I'm going to go to IAM. And IAM, again, stands for Identity and Access Management, but there's a couple of things that I want to point out right away. So you'll notice that I have an account ID. Okay, so here's my account ID. I've also set up an account alias, so I can come in and edit this and just change it. So it's kind of meant to be a easily remembered alias for your account ID. So mine's Brian's-AWS. And then that's going to show up in my URL for the sign-in. Okay, so if I open up a new incognito window, so I go to my file menu and I say I want a new incognito window, I can use that URL, okay, from my non-incognito window. So I can use this URL if I copy it to my clipboard. And then I should be able to jump over to my incognito window and I won't be logged in and it's going to ask me for my account ID. So it automatically pre-fills that. If I was just to go to a sign-in without the account ID, I can type in Brian's-AWS or the account ID, the 12 digits, but the account alias is a lot easier to remember. And where I'm going to find that account alias, just as a reminder, is over in IAM. So in the IAM dashboard, so I'm right in the dashboard, you're going to see the account ID and the account alias, and that's going to be the URL that I can use to sign in. Okay, if I don't remember that URL, so let's say I go back over to my incognito window and I just do an AWS console. So I'm just doing a search for the AWS console. There's a sign in link. And then I'm going to sign in as an IAM user. Eventually I end up there. And a lot of times this will not be pre-populated for me. It is remembering the fact that that's the account I just signed in. A lot of times it won't be, but I can just hit remember that. I can also enable the new sign in. So you'll notice it looks the same. Okay, and then I can also still sign in as my root user account. Okay, so I can sign in with my root user, or I can sign in with my IAM user account, and it's going to ask for that account alias. Okay, so that's with my incognito browser. I'm going to go ahead and close the incognito window. Okay, what IAM does is it allows us to manage our users, our groups, and then the access that they have within AWS. Okay, so I guess the first step is I want to create an AWS user account that is not the root user account. Okay, so just a general recommendation is when I'm working within AWS, I should be working with an account that is not my root user account because my root user account is going to have access to everything. So if I enable services and things like that, that's great, no problem. But if a malicious person were to get my root user account, they would have access to everything within AWS. They could launch services on my behalf and things like that, and I'd still be responsible for that bill. So I don't want to log in with my root user account typically. Okay, so the first step is if I go over to users, I want to create a new user account. So there's an option to create a user. Okay, my username, I'm going to go ahead and do that. I want to provide access to the AWS Management Console, which is this web-based interface. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I can have a console password or I can do a custom password. I'm going to do a custom password. Okay, and I'm not going to force myself to create a new password at the next sign-in. Again, if you're an account owner and this is an employee of yours or a friend of yours or a coworker of yours, you might want to set a temporary password that you create and then they have to reset it at their next sign-in. Okay, so that would be fine. So I have my username and I have my password and I am providing AWS Management Console access. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and hit next. It's asking me to set permissions. I'm actually going to skip over this step for now. My goal with this is just to create the user account. not to necessarily set up the permissions that that user account needs. So I'm just creating a user account. I'm skipping over the permissions. And then you'll see I can tag this. What tags do is it allows me to run reports based on those tags. So for instance, let's say I was running a company and this B. Witkowski user account that I'm creating right now belonged to the finance group. Okay, I could tag that user with the finance group and I could see all the IAM users that belong to the finance group. Or let's say they belong to the IT group or the accounting group or the marketing group or whatever it is. Okay, so I can tag that. Or maybe that user account belongs to a specific project, right? Maybe it's a contractor that we've hired for a specific project that may only last 6 months, but I want to tag that so I know that those resources are going to get billed to a specific project. Okay, but I'm skipping all of that. I'm just going to create the user account. Okay, and you'll see that it's telling me that there is a sign in. Okay, so it's using that alias, and I have a password. I can show it right now. I can also email the sign in instructions to that user account if I want to. But I know the username, I know the password, I know what my council login is. I can open that in the incognito window. So I'm just going to return to my users list. Okay, and you'll see that I have one user account there. Okay, so I'm going to stay signed in as my root user account. So that's in this primary Google Chrome window. And I'm going to open an incognito window. So I'm opening an incognito window. And I'm going to go to that AWS console sign in. Okay, so I want to sign into the management console. Okay, it's asking for me my account ID, Brian's AWS. I just created the account, B. Witkowski, and then I'm going to have a password. That's the account I just created. Okay, and you'll notice that I'm able to get into AWS and I'm able to get into the console, and I'm seeing a little bit different interface, like it's trying to give me a tour of the AWS console. Okay, and it's giving me recently visited services. If I try to go into IAM with this account, so you'll notice this account credentials looks a little bit different than my root user account. So it's not an email address anymore up here in the top right. If I try to go into IAM, you're going to notice that this account does not have access to go into IAM, to create users, to create groups, to assign permissions. Okay, and that would be the same regardless of the services that I went to. Okay, so if I try to go back to my home to access any of these revisited, so if I try to go to S3, that account